Okay everyone, for this video we're going to be talking about different types of wrinkles that you can create when you're sketching out garments. Obviously, as I've said several times, the point of all of this figure drawing is that you can actually draw garments that seem like they are fitting around the body. And that's what we'll be focusing on this week, either through your wrinkles exercise or when you're working with your fabric symbol language timed exercise. So there are six basic types of garment fabric wrinkles, and we're going to talk about 5 of them, and I'll explain to you why. But the 6 basic ones are direct thrust, bend, compression, swag and hanging wrinkles, trap and closure wrinkles, and then flying wrinkles. The only one I'm not going to demo for you is the flying wrinkles because essentially what they look like is a hanging wrinkle inverted. Flying wrinkles are basically implying that there is something happening either with wind or water or something that is actually defying gravity that is making the wrinkle of the fabric move away from gravity. We don't do those a lot in costume renderings, as you can imagine. So we really are just going to focus on these 5. So thinking about what these 5 are, I'm going to demo them a little bit for you. The main thing that's really important to understand about wrinkle placement is that it needs to be intentional and it needs to make sense with the pose that you've got your figure in and how the garments are sitting on the body. So you have to make sure that you're intentionally placing wrinkle lines. You're not just kind of, drawing in pants and then kind of willy-nilly putting in wrinkle lines that don't make any sense with the pose. Wrinkle lines should, again, help articulate that the clothing is working in 3 dimensions, okay? So, for example, let's say we do direct thrust. Now, direct thrust wrinkles are something we deal with a lot, and I'm just going to kind of quickly sketch out here like a skirt. Direct thrust wrinkles are exactly what they sound like in that basically the way the body is being posed, it is stretching the fabric in one primary direction. So let's say we've got a skirt and it's sort of a wrapping around the body type of thing, right? So if I'm trying to indicate that the skirt is wrapping around the body and it's tight, then I would start at a certain focal point, right, of where I want that wrinkling to start, and then I would put in some wrinkle lines. And you see how they all emanate from one focal point here? I can do the same thing on the other side, right, a little bit, but what I'm kind of focusing on, or what I'm focusing on in this type of wrinkle, is that they're all shooting from one focal point, okay? So that is a direct thrust wrinkle. A bend wrinkle is a type of direct thrust wrinkle, but as you would expect, has to directly correlate with when your major joints are bending in the body. So you're bending your elbow, you're bending your knee, and bending wrinkles tend to have more of a starburst effect. So for instance, let's say, and I know I'm only drawing parts of the body here for you, but let's say that I've got like a bent knee that's sitting in here like that, right? So here's my calf and then my bent knee, and I'm going to put a pant leg over that. So what I'm going to do is essentially show that the pant leg is being pushed and stretched at that focal point of the knee, right? So I've created like a starburst effect around that, right? And then I can go in and remove the body, which is a lot of what you're going to be doing as you start trying to learn how to put garments onto people. You're going to create your pose, and then you're literally going to like dress your pose. I would not suggest, unless you already have a lot of figure drawing experience or drawing garments experience, that you try to draw the pose with the clothes on already. Draw the pose and then dress the pose. So you can see we've got kind of like this starburst effect that's happening here with the bend wrinkle. Continuing on, the next type of wrinkle that we use a lot is called a compression wrinkle. And compression wrinkles, again, tend to happen primarily in joints, and it has to do a lot with fabric obviously being like compressed, forced on itself through the use of the pose, right? So one that I see a lot that's very common is when people try to put hands in pockets, because we're like, oh, I don't want to draw hands, so we try to put them in pockets. So I'm gonna just try to draw a little quick inset of that here. So let's say this is my pocket, all right, and here's the center line of my pants. So I got my pocket, and I've got my hand hiding in my pocket. So there's a couple different things I can do here, again, to kind of like illustrate what's happening. One of the first ones, let's say that on this arm is like a jacket, right? So I've got my jacket here, but jackets, right, let's say it's sitting and meeting, right, the bottom here. So I should have some sort of compression happening in the bottom of this jacket, right? It shouldn't just be like a straight, like a paper doll kind of a thing, right? So this is a way to do some compression work. And basically what that is kind of almost like this zigzagging pattern that you create. And it illustrates to the viewer that the fabric is sort of collapsing on itself. And it's kind of a tricky thing to do. I tend to actually, again, when I'm drawing in the garments, I tend to draw in my compression wrinkles as I'm building whatever part of that garment I'm building. Let me show you what it looks like if I were to like have a straight thing, right? Like here's the outline of my jacket sleeve, and then I try to draw in compression wrinkles like that. That looks fake. What we're trying to show here is this, right? This kind of indents, these nice little layering effect that happens. So if you draw in hard lines and then try to fill the space with wrinkles, you get a really fake looking effect. You really have to oftentimes build the wrinkles in as you're drawing the garments, and that can take a little while to get comfortable with doing. Okay, so then the fourth type of wrinkle is a swag or a hanging wrinkle. And swag is something that is generally referred to in terms of like fabric, like upholstery fabric, but hanging swag is the same sort of thing. And what we're talking about here then is gravity pulling down on fabric. And this can be done in a couple different ways. Let's say that I was trying to show like a loose blouse or a cowl neck blouse, if you know garment terminology. Right, so I've got my shoulder line here, and I've got my blouse, and I'm trying to show that gravity is weighing down the blouse, right? So a lot of swag hanging wrinkles look like almost like a seesaw kind of effect. I can do the same thing if I'm trying to show maybe fabric pooling on the ground too. Let's say I've got like a train of a skirt, right? I can do the same thing. I can kind of like build out wrinkles, right? And create kind of what ends up looking like a pool of fabric. So something else that I hope that you're seeing with wrinkle placement is that there's a lot of, kind of thinking about our design element language, there's a lot of broken line work happening when you're creating wrinkles. The brain is amazing and very clever, and it will fill in the spaces for you for a lot of things. So you don't need to have such a disciplined, like literal interpretation of every single facet of a wrinkle. A lot of what ends up happening is a lot of broken line work that the brain then understands to mean fabric pooling or fabric compressing, okay? So again, some of that takes a little bit of practice, but it's an important tool to kind of keep in mind. And then the last wrinkle type we're gonna look at are trap or closure wrinkles. And again, this happens a lot in clothing and in garments, right? What we're saying here is that something is laying on top of something else, and it is creating a a different direction of wrinkling material. So for instance, let's say we've got a blouse, right? A loose blouse, and that blouse is sitting inside like a sash or something, right? So we've got this sash. So the wrinkle direction and the way that we show trap and closure wrinkles clearly is that the wrinkle direction changes from garment to garment. So if my wrinkles are going kind of vertically in my blouse, then in the sash, right, they need to be going horizontally, right? And this might seem like intuitive, like I said, but that kind of stuff, again, just really clarifies what's going on with the garment. And as we talked about, being a costume designer, an effective one, means that you're able to give your rendering to a shop manager and they go, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. This is sitting on top of this. I can tell because these are going this direction and these are going this direction, right? So that's what we're doing with a lot of this wrinkle work, is we're trying to clarify what's happening in your costume, okay? So again, practice this. You're going to do 2 wrinkle poses from your course packet. I don't care which ones you do. I would encourage you not to do 2 of the same kind. You're welcome to do more than 2, of course. You are sketching out the entire image though, not just the garment and not just the area that has the wrinkle, like the entire body with everything on it. So keep that in mind when you're working on this exercise, okay? Good luck.